Well, hey y'all, Six Gun Slinging here. Been on just a little bit since I've done a video, and I thought I'd do a video this time on the Leatherman Surge. A lot of people call this the king. I don't know about that, but it's a good tool. It's a really good tool. It'll do a lot of things, but it has some flaws, and I'm going to talk about that here in this video if you stick with me. So first of all, we'll take a look at the tool. Those of you that are familiar with the Wave, you'll be very familiar with this tool, although it's quite a bit bigger. I think it weighs around 9 ounces. I'm not sure. I think I checked on that at one time. Don't hold me to that, but I'm going to compare it to, here is the Wave, and we'll set it on top of there and we'll show you how much bigger it is, how much bigger the pliers are. That being said, it has a few more functionalities, if that's a word. It has more function to it, a little bit more function to it than the Wave has, and it's certainly bigger, but that comes at a cost of being heavy or heavier. This is what it looks like. You'll see if you, let me get a little pointer here. I'll use an MRE spoon. But you can see here that it has replaceable wire cutters. It also has a needle nose and regular pliers all built into one unit. That's pretty ubiquitous in the Leatherman Tool line. So that's pretty nice. The hinges, everything on this tool, it's built really well. Let me close it back up here for a minute. And like the Wave, or the Wave technology, whatever they call it, all of your tools are accessible from the outside. Your basic tools. So you could use this as a pocket knife. You have your serrated knife here, and the way you can tell that is you have these little serrations built up on top of the tool to kind of let you know. I mean, after a while you just get used to it, but that way you know which knife blade you're taking out. Then you have this one that's smooth, and that's going to be your main blade. Now I think these are made out of 428C. Now Leatherman does a really good job. I don't know if they make these. I think some parts they actually outsource, but they do a good job, whoever's doing it, on their heat treat. They hold a good edge. They take a good edge. But it's not S30V or anything, but it's certainly enough for your everyday tasks. And a cool thing about the Surge is it has these awesome scissors. Look at that. And it has a really unique, innovative spring. And they work. They're not super precision, but they're pretty precision. I mean, you can trim nose hairs with it. They are definitely a well-engineered, good pair of scissors. And if you haven't tried it, scissors really come in handy. Once you start using them, you'll be glad you did. Then it has this thing, and that's a saw. And you say, yeah, well, the Wave has a saw too. However, what it does is it takes regular. Now these are shorter than most of the ones you could buy at Home Depot or whatever, but you could buy a saw from Home Depot with a T-shank on it, and you can break it off to the size you want, or you can leave it long and have that much more functionality. It just won't fit in the tool closed. And then Leatherman also gives you, and I got the toolkit here, I'll show you how I carry it, but they also give you a file that you can carry in the case, and they give you this groovy little plastic storage thing to carry it in, and you get a diamond file and you get a regular crosshatch file. And they do put diamond material on the edge, and they do put the crosshatch material on the edge, so you can cut through nuts and bolts. It's really a handy little thing, a little groovy kit that they give you. Moving on, you can increase the functionality. This is well, let me shut this up and I'll show you. So in addition to all that, it has something that, if you're a Leatherman fan, you should be pretty familiar with, is a removable bit system where you can interchange bits. And if you carry a bit kit, and this is a bit kit that I have here, that I store in this device, or this pouch. This is a pouch by Condor, and you can get one like this at the PX, or you can get it at I think tactical store, and maybe even an Army Navy store. But it's a magazine pouch for a handgun magazine, but it works really good carrying the tool. You also have these handy little pouches on the side where you can carry a flashlight, and you can carry this thing. It goes into the bit, and it acts as an extender, and it lets you reach into longer places. If you can't get your bit in there. So anyway, that's pretty nice, and I keep this stored up behind here. This is black oxide. I got this. I don't know if they still got the program, but they have a discount for first responders, and you can. It's called the Leatherman Pro program, and they have a whole list of certain professions that you can get it. I'm an emergency room nurse now, so that's what I use. But I was a police officer. I was in the military, all that stuff. So I think they offer veteran discounts, and I'm not all sure, and I don't even know if they still have that program. They might call it something else, but it was called the Leatherman Pro program. And this device also does come with a really handy sheath that comes with it. I just thought the Condor was a lot better, so I use it, the magazine pouch. I think they call them taco pouches, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, here's your little assortment of tools. You get an awl with a sewing eye. I think that sewing eye is important for fixing leather, fixing tints, all kinds of stuff. You get a pry bar / a large flathead screwdriver. You get a small flathead screwdriver, and it has these handy little nubs that'll help you pull the top tool that you're looking for out. Now they use the principle called clumping, and what clumping is when you pull that little device to help get the tools out, it'll pull them all out. So, and then you select the one you want. On this particular one on the inside, it just has your removable bit and your can opener and bottle opener, and it does work. It's really good. All of the tools on this device lock. I'll show you. On the inside and the outside. And this is the locking mechanism right here. You just push down to engage it to open and close it. I'm not going to pull it out right now. It's kind of a pain, but it does have the secret lanyard that's stored up in here, the lanyard loop, for those that are looking for that. Like on the Wave, it has that. So that's kind of an overview of this tool. But I want to talk about, for a minute, I want to talk about the functionality of a Leatherman tool, because I hear a lot of people, you'll get on the forums, I invite you to look, and you'll see pictures of Leathermans, either the Surge or the Wave or that new ridiculously expensive Arc that they have come out with, and you'll see the plier heads broken. And they say all these things are pieces of shit. Well, they're wrong. Here's where we get into the discussion. A Leatherman tool, all Leatherman tools, are stainless steel, and they are made by metal injection molding, or MIM. MIM is a process, like it's in the name, metal injection molding, where they inject metal into a mold. It was invented in 1973, but it didn't really come into vogue into the manufacturing process until the 80s. Now, a guy named Bill Ruger, there's many, everybody used it, but a man named Bill Ruger, if you're familiar with firearms, of Ruger Firearms, Bill Ruger really kind of helped to perfect, and he really did a lot for the MIM process. In fact, I have several Ruger firearms myself, 44 mag, 357 Magnum, and if you're a gun enthusiast and you go into a ammunition store, we have a huge store that sells nothing but ammunition here where I live. But you go in there and you look at ammo, and some of the boxes will say for Ruger firearms only. And you're like, well, what does that mean? Well, Ruger Firearms overbuilds their firearms. They're known for being incredibly strong firearms. And they sell bear hunting loads there's a company called Buffalo Bore, and they're only made for Ruger Firearms, not for Smith & Wesson, not for Colt, only Ruger, because of how heavy duty they've been building their firearm, overbuilding them for years. And yet they're metal injection molding. That being said, a drop forged tool or a purpose-built tool will always be better than a Leatherman, hands down. That doesn't mean a Leatherman's a piece of junk. In 1975, Tim Leatherman, give you a little history here, was on a road trip with his wife in Europe, and he was driving this piece of junk, trying to save a little money, like we all do, driving this piece of junk rental car, and it kept breaking down on him. But you know, Tim Leatherman was a pretty handy dude, but all he had was a scout knife at that time, and while it's a great knife, it wasn't enough to do the repairs. So then it got the wheels spinning, and he started thinking, you know, if only I could have a little emergency toolkit that I could carry on my belt in a belt pouch. And so the PST was invented. That stands for Pocket Survival Tool. I had one of the early ones, I don't go back that far, but I had one of the early ones, a PST-1, that I carried when I was a police officer. And then Gerber and some other companies started making them. And then I preferred the Gerber at that time, and so I started carrying a Gerber. But once again, it was also metal injection molded, but it had a couple other things. Anyway, those metal injection molding is never going to be as strong as a drop forge. And I'll give you a little lesson in metallurgy here. I'm not an expert, but you know, for those of you that don't know, when you hear the term drop forge, even Chinese-made cheap tools that are drop forged are going to be inherently stronger than a metal injection molded. You know, despite what, like, you know, guys like Ruger and stuff are doing, they've gotten to a fine art. But where you get into problems is especially in lateral torsion. And what I mean by that is, if you take this plier head and you were to twist it side to side, that's where the break occurs that you always see on those forums where people say they're junk. Well, they're not junk. When you drop forge a tool, you pour molten metal into a mold, and then rather than have some, you know, guy with big arms hammer on it, they just have a big old hammer that drops down pneumatically or however, and wham, it hits that tool. And depending on how much strength the tool has, like a hammer or whatever tool you're making, a pair of channel lock pliers or whatever, I didn't bring it in front of you, it doesn't matter. You can look at the grain structure and you can see, and that mechanical manipulation where that hammer comes down and wham, it hits that tool and shapes it, that mechanical manipulation of the molecules and the heat combined to make a tool inherently strong, much stronger than metal injection molding for lateral strength, you know, torsion strength. Because when you grab a bolt and you twist and you try to overuse a tool like this, it's not going to work. But that's not what it's made for. This is not a purpose-built mechanics tool. Mechanics use them. I got a friend that's an aircraft mechanic, and he carries it, and he gets them out of a little small things when he doesn't want to walk back to the toolbox. But if he's really going to torque on something, he goes over to his toolbox and he gets his Kleins, or he gets a really purpose-built tool that'll get the job done, because he knows better. And he's had his Leatherman for years and years. Now, when I want to show you something, this has been a problem, not a problem, but it's just inherent to the design of Leatherman. You'll notice that this tool, and it's a good feature, it has replaceable wire cutters. Now, in order to make that feature happen, they have to cut, you can see, they cut out a portion of the plier head. And that lets them have replaceable wire cutters, and it's a really good feature. These just screw out and they replace them. But what that does is it also further weakens the structural integrity of the plier head, and it's already weak because of its MIM. It's not inferior, but it's just not as strong as like we talked about, a drop forged tool. And it's even weaker because look, you only have like a little portion, this metal right here, and same on the other side, and then you got all this metal cut out. Now some of the older Leathermans like this one, you'll notice it doesn't have replaceable wire cutters, so they leave all this intact. So these are actually stronger because they haven't compromised the structural integrity by cutting out a big chunk of metal to accommodate those replaceable wire cutters. I've never had a problem. I've never cut so much stuff that I dulled them. I've cut a lot of wire. They work fine. Of all things, like coat hangers are galvanized and hardened. If you cut a bunch of coat hangers, you'll wear through them. I mean, you can do it every once in a while, but some guys were trying to prove a point on forums, and they were cutting like 30 or 40 wire hangers over and over and over, and then the cutters broke or got dull. Well, if you're purposely trying to fuck something up, you'll do it. I mean, there's no need to do that. I don't get guys that do that stuff. If you use this for its intended purpose as a tool, you're not going to have that problem. And we get into philosophy of use. So you have this tool, and like me, I go out to the desert all the time. I go shooting. We have a ranch out there, so we're always doing stuff outside. Like in my truck, like I'm out there, you don't have cell phone communication a lot of the times, stuff like that. So what I'll do is you can buy a little canvas bag or a little range bag or whatever, and you build you a little toolkit of purpose-built tools that'll get you out of the situation. Like you can carry stuff to replace a water pump, but if you're out stuck on a road somewhere and you don't know how to replace a water pump, or you don't have another one, well, you don't need to carry that because that's not a job you're going to do. But you, in theory, could pop a brake line, hit a rock or hit something, four-wheel driving, and cut your fuel line. Or like I carry a vulcanization kit to where if I get a puncture in my tire, I can vulcanize, seal it. That's a kit that you use. I can use these Leathermans for that, but you just shove some rubber in. It's a rubber spike that you shove into the hole. You light it on fire, and it melts into place, and it holds air to get you out of a pinch. And that way, you don't have to change your tire in the middle of the sand or the rain or whatever's going on. But you carry yourself a few purpose-built tools. Like you could use this to change your battery out and do stuff like that. But some of these other jobs you're going to need a basic socket set, and you should have that to do some basic basic. I'll give you an example. I had my little basic toolkit, and there was this guy, and he was stuck way out in the middle of the desert, and his dad had died, and very unfortunate. But this poor guy, his dad had taken out the kit to change the tire with, so he didn't have nothing. He couldn't lower the tire. He couldn't get the lug nuts off, and so what we ended up doing was, I had a screwdriver. There's this little tube that you put the wrench in that they ordinarily give you, and then it has a ratchet, and you rotate it around, and it lowers the tire. Well, he didn't have any of that, so we put a screwdriver, and I had a pair of channel locks, and we lowered the tire. And then kind of jerry-rigged, but we made I got my jack up under there, and we got him up, and we got his tire changed, and he got out of there. But it's just because I had a couple basic tools. So you should anticipate what could go wrong. Once again, in my truck, it's very sandy out there where I live here, and you could get stuck in the sand. It happens all the time. So what you got to do is you got to let the air out of your tires, and that increases surface area and traction, and it'll get you out of very sandy areas if you get stuck. But then when you get back onto a road, a hard road or whatever, you want to make sure. So I carry a little pneumatic pump. It takes a long time because it's real small, but I pump the air back in my tires, and that way I don't ruin my tires and I can get out of the desert. Just think about what your situation's going to be in. Like where I live out there, I carry water. I carry a jump starter pack where I can jump my own battery. I carry some basic things. Whatever it is. But this Leatherman is not going to do a lot of those tasks. It's going to do a lot of things. And man, a Leatherman I made a video about a Leatherman Surge TTI that's like this one, but it has titanium and stuff. And you can watch that. But I told the story on there how our Leatherman really saved the day and a lot of money when my friend's Jeep got locked out. And, I was able to use the tool to help him. But even all that being said, okay, like I carry this thing. It's got a bit kit, a bit extender, a flashlight. It's got this groovy tool, and it's cool. When I'm going outdoors, I'll try to carry this or a Leatherman mutt, something like that, and it's a really useful tool. But I don't fool myself. I still carry a small bag of purpose-built drop forged tools, including socket set, including channel lock pliers, big long heavy duty screwdriver, which really came in handy. If you have the mindset and you approach these multi-tools for what they can do, if you understand the limitations of this tool and use it for what it is, they're life-saving. But if you try to stretch this thing out way past what it is, you're a fool and you deserve it to break on you because you don't know what you're doing. It's okay if you don't have an understanding of basic physics or mechanics, but the information's out there. There's a wealth of information out there. You should learn just some simple basic car repair, from how to change a car tire, even if your jack breaks. Like a lot of people don't know, you can take paracord, what you should carry, or some heavy duty rope, and you can take a log and you can tie it to most trucks. Most heavy duty vehicles have toe strap notches on the front of the bumper, and you can tie that log to that, and then you drive your truck forward and then backwards, and it'll lift, it'll lift the front of your truck up if you don't have a jack. That's how the Army used to teach people to do it on those deuce and a halves and those type of vehicles. And it's just having a basic understanding of how stuff works. Because if you're out in the middle of nowhere and you don't have a cell signal, well, you're not going to be able to call AAA. And the thing is, you should have some self-reliance. Like, we've kind of lost that. Like, for lack of a better term, and I hate to say it, but it's a pussification of America. We have a lot of pussies that don't know how to do, like I said, I'm an emergency room nurse, and there was a doctor. He's a real sharp guy. I mean, he's a doctor, and he's a very cool guy. But he came out, and his cell phone was dead, and he was way in the parking lot, and they'd already closed the facility that we were at, and he was freaking out because his car wouldn't start. And I took a look, and what it was, some of y'all recognize this, he had a bunch of, that green stuff that gets on your terminals, that oxidization, and it's a base material. You have acids and bases, and it's a base, and the battery acid, or it's an acid, excuse me. You got the battery acid. So, all you do is you put a little baking soda on it, and then put a little Vaseline on it, and that'll never happen again. I cleaned it up for him. We got his car started, and long story short, he's like, "How did you know how to do all that?" And I didn't mean to say it like this, but I go, "Well, because I'm not an idiot, sir." But that's not the way the guy thinks, and I'm just saying you shouldn't. I'm not a super aircraft mechanic or anything like that, but I know how to do some basic mechanics. When I was growing up, that's You were looked down upon if you didn't have tools or even understand how to use tools. Now people don't have a clue. They don't have any idea. And you really should learn. If you're a woman, you should learn how to change your own tire. You should learn how to do basic repairs. You should learn that stuff. You should never be beholden or helpless to anybody. I don't know what state you live in. I don't know what country you live in. But you should carry a gun. You should carry a fire extinguisher. You should carry some basic things like water, an empty backpack where you can build a little kit if you're stuck having to walk. You should carry a jacket. You should use some common sense and be able to rescue yourself, because cell phones aren't always going to work. In some areas, they don't work at all. They lie to you, those stupid commercials that say, oh, we got all this coverage. The Leatherman Tool is part of that mindset. It's a tool that's part of a system. It's not the system itself, but it's part of a self-reliant system to where, whatever you do for a living, you're at work. I keep one of these in my backpack when an emergency room nurse. And you think, well, why would a nurse at work need a Leatherman? I needed it plenty of times to fix stuff that broke, from gurney wheels to I had to fix a wheelchair because we're in short supply and I got to wheel a patient out. I fixed a wheelchair with Leathermans. I carry Leatherman Raptors, which are trauma shears, which I've used many times for their intended purpose. And they have ring cutters and stuff. As a police officer, I used a Leatherman Tool. Well, I used a Gerber at that time. It was invaluable, and I tell that story in another video. Anyway, it's just a philosophy of use. It's a type of person you want to be, male or female. Be self-reliant. Learn how to do stuff. Learn the limitations of your tool. Like a gun. Have a gun, but know what it can do, know what it can't do. Have a fire extinguisher. Have basic non-perishable food and water. Keep just a little supply in your truck in case, or your car, in case you're out in the middle of nowhere and you have to make do until you get help. Understand how to use a compass. I mean, all those things. And a Leatherman tool, it fits into that philosophy. Learn how to read a map. Learn how to plot a course. They taught us that back in the Army. I think they still do. But even as a civilian, whoever you are, you should learn how to use a map. Because you ain't always going to have GPS or cell phones. Learn how to use a map. Learn how to figure out what direction, where you are, what hemisphere you live in. When you're driving, pay attention to where you are, how many miles you are from landmark, because you may not have cell service, but you can get there, and you can say, yeah, I'm broke down 2 miles from the intersection of whatever. It's just a mindset of self-reliance, and that's what I think Leatherman. They're cool. A lot of people get them for fidget tools, or I don't know why they get them. They get them for whatever, but they're great for hiking, great for whatever. But it's only a small thing. Number one is your first thing that you use is mindset, and a pocket knife or a Leatherman. It's a tool that can get you out of jams if you're a smart person or a thinking person, and you know how to adapt and flex the tool into a role that you need. But when I was in college, we had this thing called critical thinking, and they always were harping on that, but it really makes a lot of sense, and it's truthful that you need to learn how to think critically. You need to be able to look at a problem, evaluate what the problem is, and figure out how to solve it. And too many people are so reliant on technology and other things. We have access to more information than we've ever had, but people don't understand how to use basic critical thinking skills. If anything, they've gotten worse, and that's a shame. But you can start off with the Leatherman. Learn everything that this sucker can do. Learn its limitations. Figure out what kind of purpose-built small toolkit you can carry in your car. What other items you can carry. You don't have to be some hardcore survival prep guy, but you do need to be self-reliant. And this Leatherman, the Leatherman Surge, it's a heavy tool. If you don't want to carry that much weight, you carry you a Leatherman Wave. If this is too much weight, they make some smaller tools. A Skella tool, I think they make. And figure out what tools you need. You know, what in your daily life, whoever you are, what kind of problems you're going to run into, and what kind of tools, you know, and things could get you out of those problems. A tool's not going to do anything that your brain and your creativity and all that and your critical thinking skills, that's what's going to get you out of trouble. And this tool is just going to be a conduit to help that happen. Anyway, that's a talk on the Leatherman Surge and a little bit of philosophy of use. You know, I'm getting older. You never think that you ever get old, but you start realizing, like, you look at some of these really young people, young guys, and they don't know shit. They don't know shit about anything. They don't know. Half of them don't even know how to change a tire themselves. You know, like if you ask them, "Where's your jack?" You know, don't look. Tell me where your jack is. Tell me what side of the car is your gas thing on to fill your gas. You know, stuff like they don't even know. You know what I mean? Like just simple things. And I would like that to change. I would hope that would change and we start getting back to self-reliance, because my grandparents were incredibly self-reliant because they had to be. They were alive during the war, World War II, and my grandpa was over fighting in the war, and my grandma knew how to fix tires. She had to fix them because you got these stamps. You couldn't just go buy a tire if your tires got bald. You had to learn how to patch them and make do. You had to learn how to grow your own vegetables because you only got so much food because of the whole war effort thing. So you had to stretch stuff. You had to think. You had to make do. We've kind of gotten away from that, and I think that's a shame. You know. Anyway, once again, another rambling video, but that's some philosophy of use on the Leatherman Surge. That's some philosophy on self-reliance, and that's a philosophy on tools and knowledge in general. Anyway, I appreciate y'all stopping by. If you like what I do, please like and subscribe. You know, I'm not trying to get famous or anything like that, but I would like to build a cool little knife community. And that being said, I appreciate all of you, and we'll catch you down the road.